Hello world, welcome back to the Razor RC. Today we're doing the full review of the Arrma Outcast 4S V2.5. I think it's officially still called the V2, just in a different colorway, gray or red, but it is pretty much an all-new vehicle in my opinion. It does feature a lot of changes, so we'll be going over that. We'll also be talking about the 6 major categories we do all these reviews in. We're going to be talking about the electronics, design, the performance, the durability, support and maintenance, and finally the value. And we give it a rating from 1 to 5 stars, basically comparing it to other vehicles within its class. So those are going to be things like the Traxxas Maxx V2, which I have, Sketer 4S, which I have, even maybe the Kraton 4S V2.5, which I also had. I also had the original V2s, the teal and green one, or was it teal and blue one, I guess, the Kraton and the Outcast. So very familiar with this platform. And the way the ratings work is we give it 3 stars if it's average within its class among all those other vehicles, if I think it's kind of typical for what you get. 5 stars if it's best in class, pretty much best among all those, and then 1 star if it's worst in class. So it is great on a curve. It's not just 5 stars because I like it or I think it's great. It's really because I think it's best in class compared to those other things. If you get 3 stars in all categories, it's not a bad score. It just means it's kind of typical for what you get. So yeah, let's get into the review. All right, pulling off the body, you can see the electronics. So it does feature the new black spectrum electronics. So this is 120 amp ESC. I guess they call it the V2 Firma, ESC. And then the motor I think is the same as before, 2400 kV, 36 by 68 millimeter can motor. It does have that heat sink and fan on top. Radio is pretty much the same as before, the SLT3 radio, but does come with the SR315 receiver within the receiver box, which is a nice receiver because you can bind up to any other Spectrum radio. If you have a DX5 Pro, DX6C, something like that, it'll bind right up and you can just use a single remote for all your Arrmas if you want to do it that way. They did also update the servo as well. It's now 25-tooth servo, metal geared S662 I think is what it's called. Somewhat slow servo, I would say. It's actually fairly slow, but does seem pretty robust, pretty good torque. So in that perspective, I think it's fine. I think the electronics are actually best in class. Radio SLT3 is actually better than average RTR radio, but the receiver is awesome because you can bind up to any other Spectrum radio. The ESC I think is awesome, has a lot of programming options, plenty of power, no issues there. You can use a programming card to change settings and stuff. Motor is totally fine, does have the heatsink and fan on top. And then the servo is a nice improvement. They went from a 23-tooth old Spectrum servo to a 25-tooth Spectrum servo, which is industry standard. So it's nice that they went and made those changes. I think electronics-wise, this is best in class. It's pretty fast. Receiver radio is a great combination. Servo is adequate, and motor is totally fine. So yeah, within the electronics, we're going to give it full 5 stars. I think it's best in class. Now the V2.5s do feature some changes from the original V2s, additional mudguards here in the rear, all new chassis with additional coverage here in the front. Does help prevent rocks and stuff from getting into the chassis. They did redesign some of these battery straps, not as big a fan of that. Some of the wire stays down here, those work totally fine. Big one is the center differential. So the old one had a slipper clutch, which worked okay, but the center differential is obviously going to give you more tuning options. It does have 500K diff fluid in the center diff. I did have to top that off a little bit. It was a little bit low, but works totally fine. I think that's great. Chassis is another big improvement. So they do have some additional cutouts here, so dirt and stuff that gets in that power module can fall out. So less likely to mess up your gears and your bearings and stuff. So that's a nice improvement. Did reinforce the necks up here, and then they did improve the durability somehow. I'm not sure how they did that exactly, but my old chassis would crack. I did break several of those on my old Outcast 4S, so improved the durability quite a bit there. But yeah, overall, a nice little vehicle. I think all those changes make it not only drive a little bit better, but be a little bit more durable. They did remove the sway bars, which allows it to roll a little bit more, actually get a little bit more traction. And with that center diff, it definitely steers better than before. So nice improvements there. Overall, design-wise, I'm going to give it 4 stars. It is based on the 3S vehicle. It's totally fine. I personally would probably prefer an aluminum chassis. Like the Sketer, I think is pretty nice and a little bit more of a traditional 8-scale style layout, but this works fine now that they've kind of fixed everything. There's not rocks and stuff getting in, grinding up your drive shafts as before. The chassis is way more durable. Center diff is certainly an improvement that a lot of people were looking for, and then that little cutout to allow dirt to fall out. So yeah, overall, really nice design. I think it works quite well, above average, 4 stars in the design category. The Outcast is designed as a stunt machine, and within that category, it certainly performs. Does wheelies on command at any time, especially if you make sure that center diff is full. Does a ridiculous amount of flips in the air. You can certainly double or triple backflip this thing. It is a little bit different than the V2 Outcast. I do find the driving characteristics to be a little bit better. The old one did tend to understeer quite a bit, on power, off power, everywhere basically. So removing that sway bars did help. That was a tuning suggestion I had on the old V2s. They did that kind of factory out of the box. Center diff definitely allows it to be a little more fluid on the ground, but it doesn't keep the front wheels on the ground all that much. So I don't think it's as big of an improvement as on the Kraton, but yeah, definitely is tunable. Definitely allows it to kind of flow and go around corners a little bit better, but for the most part, this thing is going to be in the air or on 2 wheels. So the other thing I did notice with the center differential is it does move the weight forward quite a bit. I'd say, ½ inch, 3/4 inch or so. That motor is much more closer to the center line of the vehicle. It actually floats faster in the air, in my opinion, than the old Outcast 4S. So it does change the stuntability of this a little bit. You definitely will want to make sure that diff is full, just to make sure you have the full floor wheels helping you rotate in the air. But to me, it flips actually a little bit faster than before. Not as easy to drive, I would say, with that center differential. The old one's a little more point and shoot. It's already kind of a monster with this crazy amount of power, and being on the rear wheels all the time. That center diff or center slipper in the old one actually helped it drive it a little bit straighter and do the flips and be a little bit more controlled, although it didn't steer as well on the ground. But yeah, it did a nice little improvement. It does drive excellent. It is a lightweight vehicle, tons of power. The tires, I think, are best in class. These, the backflips LPs, I think makes it awesome in the way it actually drives. So as a stunt machine, I'm actually going to give it 5 stars. I think this is best in class. Certainly drives a lot better than the Maxx. Much more of a stunt vehicle than the Kraton or even the Sketer, I think. So the Sketer, you would really want to, widen it a little bit or add bigger tires or something. But this thing, out of the box, amazing stunt vehicle. Just not quite as easy to drive on the ground, in my opinion, with that center diff, but in rotating in the air, it is quite a bit faster. So anyways, those are my thoughts. Performance-wise, I think it's a full 5 stars. Excellent performance, best in class. Now, most of the improvements they did to this are to improve the durability, especially on the chassis side. So the old Outcast, I think I gave it 2 stars out of 5. I thought it had below average durability because the chassis, I broke several of those, and that is something I think they were really trying to address with this. So I'm happy to say I have not cracked the chassis on this, so it's it is working quite well. I did break one on my Kraton where the hinge pin brace or the hinge pin mount basically for the arms tore out once when I landed basically on the corner. I did land this poorly on one corner as well, just broke a shock rod end, but other than that, nothing has broken. So it's nice to see. I think the durability on this is really, really good. Just the chassis can break at the hinge pin mount if you land it completely, on one wheel or something like that. The rest of the vehicle seems totally fine. The body's working, holding up pretty well. I think all the shocks and stuff work pretty well. Good durability with the aluminum shocks. The tires, are vented out of the box, so no issues there. Overall, I think this is a very durable platform now, where it used to be a below average score with the old V2s. I think is now an above average score. So I'm going to give it 4 stars in the durability category. I think it works really well. I did break a fan mount on my Arrma Kraton as well. I did not break one on this, but that is pretty typical. These fans are fairly cheap, so something you might want to upgrade in the future if it breaks. But the servo didn't break. Electronics worked totally fine. No other issues. So yeah, great rating in the durability category. Arrma is a pretty big brand here in the US. You can definitely find parts for this. This platform has been around for years and years, even starting from the original V1 Kraton and Outcast. A lot of the parts are still interchangeable. So part support, I think this is excellent. The warranty is actually best in class as well. 2 years warranty on these Arrmas, and certainly Arrma is very easy to work with if you need to get replacement parts and stuff. I think people kind of abuse that warranty thing. It's really meant for manufacturing flaws and not just any breakage, right? If you jump this into a concrete wall and it breaks, that's not really the car's fault. But yeah, that makes it excellent in the support and maintenance category. Working on it's a little bit more difficult. This brace can kind of get in the way. The center shaft's a little bit more difficult to get to. They did make the center power module a little bit easier to work on, so it's just 2 bolts underneath. Other than that, yeah, I don't think this latch here in the back actually does anything anymore. So yeah, that's almost like optional. I think they even actually cut it out of the box. I'm not really sure, but that was broken on this and the crane. It looks like someone maybe just cut it from the factory. Not totally sure, but yeah, it was not an issue. So yeah, overall support and maintenance, I'm gonna give it 4 stars. I think Traxxas vehicles are a little bit easier to get parts, certainly more widespread within hobby shops here in the US. But in this category, I do think it's above average, 4 stars in support and maintenance. The Outcast sells for $450 here in the US. That is a $20 savings as before. So I don't know how they're able to do it by upgrading this vehicle, adding more parts. I think the center differential probably costs a little bit more than the slipper. Upgrade electronics, you know, the mud guards and stuff all work really well. Chassis is all new. Somehow they're able to drop the price of this 20 bucks, I think, from before and give you more stuff. So in the value category, I think this is best in class, 5 stars. Other vehicles like the Sketer are a little bit over $500. The Maxx I think is like $580 or so, so quite a bit more than this. And I don't think, you know, necessarily they are worth that much more. So yeah, this is a great value, 5 stars. It is the cheapest, really well equipped, drives really well. I can't say enough about what a good deal this is. It's very rare to see RC cars go down in price over time, especially with inflation and stuff like that. So it's nice that they were able to do that. I don't know how, but certainly a welcome change. So my final thoughts on the Outcast for us is it's a great vehicle, tons of fun. Certainly if you want a stunt machine that is a little bit less expensive, a little bit more of a value play, with still good durability and best in class performance, I think it's excellent. The tires I think are awesome, radio receiver awesome, really no complaints about this vehicle. Maybe you want to pick up a slightly faster server or something like that, that might make it perform a little bit better, but durability wise, performance wise, this is best in class. If you want to pick one of these up, I will have links in the description below where you can buy one of these. But yeah, great choice overall. Highly recommended. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit the like, share, subscribe buttons. Look for more videos soon. Thanks for watching.